welcome you to this deep dive presented by Crest Leadership, entitled Leaders in the Midst, Why Self-Leadership in a Scrambled World. My name is Terry Young, and I work with Crest Leadership on the MCL, the Master in Christian Leadership program that we present to those who have gone through the certificate program or diploma program. And I'm glad that you're with us in this deep dive on what it is to engage in very wise and good self-care as we seek to navigate the world of leadership these days. We provided for you in this deep dive several resources and several things that you can use for note pages to follow along. One is an overview, a one-page overview, simply entitled Why Self-Leadership in a Scrambled World, and it basically lays out the 6 dimensions or 6 segments that we're going to deal with in this deep dive. Attached to that is something called the project. And it's simply a 2-page overview that provides you a little bit of note space to make some comments of your own as to what each of these 6 dimensions are about related to self-care, and then as well to think about your own action steps. We're going to prompt you in every segment to make a few notes to self about your own self-care these days. This deep dive is very much giving perspective on various critical elements that can help us, I believe, be better leaders in the midst of the challenges of leadership these days. So we're providing a PowerPoint. The PowerPoint is there. We're going to have a number of things that we're going to go through, but let's dive into segment 1. Segment 1 is dealing with the matter of discerning our load. But first of all, to think about what we could call the midst stories that we hear, we tell, because these days we look around at colleagues and peers, and we know that leaders are in the midst of a tremendously challenging time. We also, as leaders, experience ourselves in the midst. And in the midst of leadership, there are our own unique challenges, our own unique context. There's also a lot of research that's been done in recent days about the particular challenges in the workplace, for-profit, nonprofit. There's been work done by the United Methodist, for example, on flourishing pastors and the challenge of the role complexity, the context complexity, and just what is upon the shoulders of clergy. All of this lets us know that leaders in the midst face tremendous challenges, not the least of which is how do you care for your own self in the midst of it? There's also the midst stories yet to be lived. There are things that are yet before us we don't know. We want to be better prepared to be more resilient leaders in the midst, and that's what this deep dive is about. Teresa of Avila many years ago said, one must remember that there is more than one way to be in a place. So I can be in a place of leadership and I can be frazzled and frayed, or I can be in a place of leadership and not be frazzled and frayed, but be focused, be healthy, be in a sense flourishing, even though the context is the same as the one in which I might be frayed and frazzled. There's more than one way to be in a place. And that's what Leaders in the Midst is all about. How can we be in the place of leadership in a way that is more healthy, is wiser, is more effective in the long term, and more sustainable over the long term with all the things that are in the midst of leadership these days. So there are some people who are making their way through the midst and they're seeing through it. They keep their wits about them. They keep their eyes open. There are others who are stumbling. And there's a whole gradient here of how we perhaps might be in our place. We want to help you, give you some elements of and dimensions of what it means to lead and live more wisely in the midst of leadership. For a lot of leaders these days, there's a weariness. There's a lot of tiredness. It's as if the gauge of our hearts, our souls, our minds is running low, especially given the context of the last year or so. And we want to provide you some dimensions of your own self-care that can help you to monitor this aspect of your own life energy your heart energy, your mind energy, your work energy, and to sustain it and to keep it at a healthy level. We all know that in the scriptures, we're told to take heed to ourselves. And that really is at the heart of this work on Leaders in the Midst. What does it mean to pay good attention, not just to our context of leadership, but what does it mean to pay good attention to our own lives? Because if we do not care for ourselves, we eventually will not be able to care for others. And so this matter of self-care becomes very, very important, and our place in the midst deserves our best attention. So we're going to deal with 6 segments, and you've got the note page, the one-page overview. The first element of living well in the midst is simply this: to discern your load, to be aware of what is actually going on with you day by day, and with your staff team, with the people you work with. And we simply zero in on 3 circles. If you're going to think about the load that you carry, this is a good way for you to do an audit or assessment of what it is you actually carry. Paul in Galatians 6 talks about the fact that we are to carry one another's burdens. There's a wonderful element. We're going to look at that in the final dimension of this particular deep dive on building your base, is that we are to bear one another's burdens. But Paul then in Galatians 6 verse 5 says, but each one must carry their own load. So there is an element in which we can get help from others in carrying the load of life, but there's also elements in which we must all individually carry our own load. What is the load of life? There are 3 circles to think about, and we're going to look at that in a moment. But much of life and much of leadership is carrying. Tim O'Brien, a number of years ago, wrote this book entitled The Things They Carried. And in this book, he talks about the fact that these are soldiers that fought in the Vietnam War. He went back to Vietnam. He interviewed Viet Cong. He interviewed South Vietnamese soldiers. He interviewed U.S. Marines and others who were there who fought in the Vietnam War, and asked them the question, what did you carry? And they said food and medicine and so forth, gear and weapons and water and pitchers. And then he would ask them, what else did you carry? And this is what take them to a deeper level, and they would talk about hope and fear and the weight of not showing their fear. They also carried themselves, often with a poise and kind of dignity that defied reason. He would then say, after they'd exhausted their answer, he would say, what else did you carry? And he would get down to the deepest level of what these mostly men carried in battle. And it was here that he got into the things that brought the greatest emotion. I've often thought that when it comes to leaders, whether they're educators, whether you're in healthcare, whether you're in civil service, whether you're in ministry roles, church roles, whether you're in a for-profit business, an entrepreneur, there could be a book written by every one of us on the things we carry. And so to get at what it is we actually carry, there are these 3 circles we want you to think about. The circle of your work life, the circle of your own personal life, home life, and the circle of your wider world. One particular writer on this area of what it is that we carry, William Kahn, has talked about the challenge front of holding, what it is we hold as we lead. And he makes this point that we hold in his dimensions, we hold technique. This is much related to work life. We hold technique, which is the work itself. We hold relationships, that is the mix of people we travel with. We hold the contextual strain, the wider world issues and impact points. And as we go through our work life, we absorb all of this. It's all that we take in. There are days we love the work. There are days we find the relationships enriching. There are days when the contextual strain is not that acute. But there are other days when the work itself is very daunting and the relationships are very challenging and the contextual strain is so ominous, we don't know what's going to come next. And we absorb all of this, we take it in. That is, like a sponge, all of these things come at us and we absorb it. So in the 3 circles of your life, there is your work life. A good exercise is to simply ask yourself right now, what am I carrying related to my work life? And try to be as objective and as thorough as possible in listing out what it is you carry. Secondly, in your personal family life, your marriage life, your raising of children, your aging parents, whatever it might be, what are all the things in your home life that you are absorbing, that you're taking in? And then there's the wider world. What is there in the wider world that you're taking in as well? This is where the time in which we live is very unique. And we have these close to home demands that we all carry, and they're part of life, and we carry them often with a sense of honoring of mother and father, and of parenting, and of loving family members and spouse, and they're the close to home load, but they are things we carry. There's also the on the job things that we carry, as we've noted out. There's also then in the world matters that we carry. And it is in view of the present time that we live in that we realize the challenges of this issue of discerning our load. Because pre-COVID, there really was not a separation, but there was a sort of a more balanced overview or layover of these three things in all of our lives. We had our home life, our family life, and we dealt with those things, and we dealt with relationship and friendships. And we also had our jobs. We went to our work and we did our jobs. And there was a bit of overlay from home to job. And then there was the in the world matters. And there was a bit of an overlay to our jobs and a bit of an overlay of the in the world demands to our home life. With COVID, we have experienced something that is incredibly unique. And it's simply a matter that all of these areas of load have converged in a way that they are more overlapping than ever before, especially the in the world dimension of COVID and of all the other things that are presently in the air related to our society, our countries, issues related to race relations, and all of the things politically that have been going on. And all these things have made their way deeply into our home life. They've also made their way deeply into our job lives. And so you have people working from home, doing their jobs, wrestling with something that is in the world, affecting everyone in the world. And so discerning our load is the first issue in living well in the midst. And that is, you need to define your current reality. And here's where you do a little personal exercise. And that personal exercise right now is to take out a piece of paper and perhaps draw your three circles and fill those circles with all the things that are in the backpack or that you're carrying that are part of your load. And when you do this, I think many of you will be surprised because we're not aware of the granular nature of all the things that have been additive to our lives. And we wonder why the energy bar often goes low is that we've taken on more and more and more and more. And I think the older we get, the more we take on different types of load, and the backpack feels much heavier. This first step is just defining your current reality. What is in my backpack? What is in my work world dimension of my life right now? What are all of the things that I'm trying to tackle, deal with, do well in my home life? What are all the things that I'm carrying? Because you're not just carrying, your own stuff. You may have sons and daughters. You may have aunts and uncles. You may have moms and dads who are going through what they're going through, and you're carrying that. And then there is the in the world things of angst, of anxiety, of worry, about all kinds of things that are related to what's happening in the world around us. So I want to encourage you, take some time, note to self, in this first segment of living well in the midst, discern your load. What is it you're carrying? Take some time to ponder this, and we'll see you in segment 2, which will lead us into the matter of discerning and respecting the equation that is at work in us as we seek to carry the load of life.